Dr. Amanda Patel is an assistant professor of Management and Entrepreneurship Department at Sawyer Business School of Suffolk University. So recently, Dr. Patel published a very interesting study in Journal of Applied Psychology, which is considered one of the most premier academic journals in the business field. Let us know more about Dr. Patel and her study. So Dr. Patel, what are your general research interests and expertise area?
So when I went into graduate school, I knew that I was very interested in employee health and well-being. So very broadly, that is my research interest. And over time, it has become more niche, I like to say. And I really spend a lot of time focusing on employees' physical health behaviors like eating and exercising and then sleep.
Thank you very much. And then in this article, we see that you focused on the health eating climate. Could you touch upon the highlights of this article?
Yeah, so my co-authors were Trevor Watkins and Giselle Antoine, and it was a really fun team to work with. But we started out kind of piggybacking off of some of Trevor's work, but we spent some time talking about workplace healthy eating and what does that actually mean. And that took a lot of time and effort to come up with a definition that would be general enough to span across cultures, but specific enough to capture what is healthy and not healthy. So we came up with the definition of workplace healthy eating is a diet rich in nutrients and low in unhealthy components. And we used consumption stereotype theory to kind of hypothesize about the impact of what we eat in the workplace and how that would affect others' perceptions of us and their subsequent behaviors towards us. And then we also did this within the context of the organizational health climate.
This is great. Thank you so much for highlighting that particular aspect. So now we're moving into the research methodology that you and your co-authors are using in this article. And then we see that in this particular article, you used a mixed method approach with a piloting study at the beginning and then followed by 3 separate studies. And then in which case you both use the survey methodology as well as the experimental design. So could you share with us the fun part or any surprise when you are running all these studies?
Yeah, the fun part was definitely the experiment because we manipulated Taylor and whether or not Taylor was a healthy eater or an unhealthy eater. And so the way we did that was we showed a picture of an office desk with either a salad or a bottle of water, or a salad and a bottle of water, or pizza and a pop or soda, I guess, if you're from New England. And that was fun because we used my actual work desk. And so we went out, we bought these food items, and then we took pictures of my desk with these different food items. But yeah, so that was probably the funnest part. Yeah.
Very interesting, especially we saw that in your study that you took the screenshot about different dishes by the computer. That is really interesting. And then people feel that kind of like it's related to their day-to-day kind of like a workplace.
Yeah.
Have you ever encountered any kind of hiccup or like some difficulties when collecting the information or running all these tests?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the biggest ones we actually had with this journal and with any journal, I think, with any publication, but we always get questions about whether or not the way we measured something is accurate. So as I mentioned earlier, we were looking at coworkers' perceptions of self-control. And so our reviewers wondered, well, was it driven by perceptions of self-control, or is there something about the actual focal person's true self-control. So when we were asked this, we were a little bit miffed about how to answer it. So what we ended up doing was we had all the contact information for the people who participated in our field study, thankfully. We emailed them and explained our situation. We said, hey, we got an R&R at this top tier journal. This is really important. Can you please answer these last few questions for us? And we had them rate their own self-control. And then we went back, we tested the correlation, and then we actually put it as a control in our field study model, and we were excited to see everything held.
Well, this is so true. Actually, I think in terms of the measurement problem, oftentimes is to consider very challenging questions from many, many journal reviewers and editors. Yeah, this is great. Thank you so much for sharing that part of the insight with us. So now we're moving into about the future research direction and then this particular health, eating culture and climate, its implication in the real business world. Mm-hmm. So the question we are interested in asking, in knowing is, do you plan to do any follow-up study or research on the related topic?
Yes, we are literally actually last week wrapped up more research on this, where we have now done both experiments and a field study, 2 field studies, where we extend this idea of workplace eating behaviors, and we actually look at 2 different things. So the first is, I say I'm comparing my eating to somebody else. How does that make me feel? Shame, pride, what have you. The other thing that we're looking at is, when we're thinking about someone else's eating, to what extent do we perceive food shaming, or how much have we experienced food shaming? So 2 of these kind of like moral emotion reactions, but one is a behavior directed at you, and the other one is a feeling you may feel from these observations. So that, I don't know, stay tuned.
This is very interesting, brilliant idea. I really, really love this particular, and congratulations on completing 2 field study already.
Thank you.
Yes. So in your opinion, what could be the future direction of this health eating culture and climate moving forward?
From an academic perspective, I think this is an extremely new area of research. And there is a lot to be done in terms of cultural differences around eating, how we perceive people who eat different types of food because of their culture, whether that aligns with their culture or not. So that could be a really interesting one. Also, maybe considering things like food deserts and how that impacts what people eat at work, and then our perceptions of those people and their experiences at work. So I really think the sky's the limit on this, because we're just now starting to build the foundation for this area.
Yeah, this is so true, especially people eating healthy food is super important, not to ourselves, but also to the organization culture. And it's also influenced the people's self-control and how they collaborate with each other. And then you also mentioned about this cultural perspective, that people might be eating different food, which is also very, very important, not to mention the eco-friendly sustainability that may also somehow play a role into this particular area. So do you have any kind of like a thing that you would like to share to the business professionals and managers? And then if so, what might those elements be?
Yes, I think one of the first things that came to mind with this study is this is all based on consumption stereotypes theory, which is, we know that people stereotype others based on what they eat. So a couple of basic examples: eating a salad is associated with femininity. Eating meat is associated with masculinity. So This is not an area that people often think about in terms of stereotyping. So I think for business professionals, what I would say is start thinking about these stereotypes and how to mitigate some of these effects. We think about gender, race, religion, but this is another important one because our results held across several different methodologies. And then the other thing, which is related, is I would encourage business professionals to think about how they're promoting eating in the workplace and what type of climate they're creating, and really focusing on promoting a healthy eating climate, as that mitigated some of these negative effects.
Well, thank you so much for providing all these important suggestions to the business professionals and then those like business world managers. This is very important. So now we're going to move into the last section of our entire interview, which is about the publication advice and the experience that you could share with our fellow colleagues. So the first question that we're wondering is, when you are submitting this article, what made you choose to submit to the Journal of Applied Psychology?
We chose the Journal of Applied Psychology because it was important for us to strive from the top and then work our way from there based on the feedback we got. It's really just as simple as that.
Yeah, this is great, because like many of the peers are thinking about, right, writing an article and then let's shoot for the best and then go from the top and then let's see how far we can go in this case. So thank you so much for sharing that part of the insight. And so the last question we would like to know is, what kind of like advice would you like to give or share with the fellow colleagues when they are thinking about really trying to submit to the premier journals?
I think my piece of advice for this comes a little bit before you're thinking about where to send it, but when you're thinking about the ideas you have. And that is, put together a group of people you have fun working with. Trevor and Giselle are two of my favorite people to work with in terms of academia. And we were all three doctoral students when we started this project, and we started it. Trevor was the one who had come up with the idea himself, come to us and said, hey, I know you like to do these types of things. And then honestly, because it was so fun, it didn't feel stressful to submit to a premier journal at all. It was just fun.